Imagine you are in the middle of a chaotic storm. Winds howling, rain pouring. Everything around you seems to be falling apart. The pressure builds, and every second feels heavier. But what if I told you that amidst this chaos, there's a way to stay completely still, calm, and unshaken? What if you could find peace even in the worst of situations? Can you picture yourself in that state of serenity when everything around you is spinning out of control? Life often feels like a storm, doesn't it? We go through days filled with stress, anxiety, and unexpected challenges. How do you react when things go wrong? Do you feel overwhelmed by the smallest issues? Or do you stay grounded, knowing that this too shall pass? What would happen if, instead of reacting, you could respond with calm clarity, no matter how difficult the situation? Here's an example. Think about a time when you felt like everything was crashing down on you. Maybe it was a difficult conversation or a crisis at work. In that moment, you might have felt your heart race, your mind cloud with panic. But what if, instead of that, you could tap into an inner peace, just like a calm lake, unaffected by the storms above? That's the kind of unshakable calm we're talking about, and it's possible to achieve. Welcome to Wisdom Writings, a place where we explore life's challenges through the lens of ancient wisdom, including the teachings of Buddhism. Today, we'll explore how you can stay calm and centered, no matter what life throws your way. Before we dive in, there's so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% of you subscribe. So please, if you find this video helpful, hit that like button, share it with others, and subscribe to our channel. Also, don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your feedback means a lot to us. Now, let's begin our journey toward mastering inner calm with the wisdom of Buddhism. Fire without burning. How the Buddha faced chaos. When the Buddha was alive, he was no stranger to chaos. He didn't live in a peaceful, perfect world, and neither do we. In fact, he lived through times of intense personal hardship, social conflict, and war. Yet, despite all this turmoil, the Buddha remained calm, grounded, and at peace. How? The secret lies in his profound understanding of suffering, his ability to endure hardship, and his approach to life's inevitable challenges. Let me take you back to a moment in history. The Buddha, after years of searching for answers, came to a profound realization under the Bodhi tree. He realized that life, in its essence, is filled with suffering, but that suffering doesn't have to control us. He saw that when we resist life's hardships, when we fight against them, we make things worse. The more we try to escape pain, the deeper we fall into it. But the Buddha also understood something incredibly important. Pain, suffering, and challenges are not permanent. They rise, they fall, and they pass. Imagine for a moment you're standing in the middle of a blazing fire. The flames are intense, the heat unbearable, and the smoke fills your lungs. It's natural to panic, right? But what if I told you that the fire could rage on, and yet you could remain untouched? This might seem impossible, but this is exactly what the Buddha was able to do. His mind, like an unshakable mountain, could withstand the fires of anger, greed, and fear that often cause suffering. The Buddha didn't fight the fire. He didn't try to escape it or push it away. Instead, he learned how to be present with it. When a storm rages inside us, when anger, fear, or anxiety flare up, it's like being caught in a fire. The instinctive reaction is to escape, to run, or to put out the flames with force. But the Buddha showed that there's another way. We can stay in the fire without being consumed by it. How do we do this? The key lies in mindfulness and awareness. Mindfulness is not about avoiding the fire or pretending it isn't there. It's about becoming aware of the fire, acknowledging its presence, and then learning how to control your reaction to it. Instead of allowing the fire to burn you, you observe it. You see it for what it is, temporary, fleeting, and not a part of your true nature. This practice is difficult, but it's possible with patience and persistence. Let's look at how this works in our everyday lives. Consider the small fires we encounter each day. The stress of work, the disagreements with loved ones, the fears about the future. These are like sparks, starting small, but threatening to turn into something bigger if we don't manage them properly. In our modern world, we often let these little sparks grow into raging fires because we act out of impulse, without thought or awareness. We react with anger, frustration, or anxiety, and before we know it, we're consumed by the very thing we feared. But imagine, just for a moment, that you could respond to each spark with clarity and calm. One way to do this is through practice known as the pause. When you feel your emotions start to rise, when you feel the fire starting to build inside of you, take a deep breath. Give yourself a moment to simply breathe. This moment of stillness can be enough to break the cycle of reaction. It's a practice of detachment, not in the sense of ignoring or denying your emotions, but of observing them without becoming entangled in them. It's like standing in front of a fire, watching the flames flicker without getting burned. The Buddha also taught the practice of equanimity, which is the ability to remain calm and balanced in the face of both joy and sorrow. This doesn't mean you won't experience emotions, but it means you don't allow your emotions to control you. You experience them, acknowledge them, and let them pass. Think of your emotions as clouds in the sky. Some clouds are dark and heavy, while others are light and fluffy. No matter how dark or light they may seem, they all pass. The sky remains unchanged, clear, and expansive. To truly live with equanimity, we must accept that suffering is part of the human experience. This doesn't mean that we seek out pain or hardship. Rather, we accept that pain will come, and when it does, we won't run from it. We won't let it define us. Instead, we will meet it with compassion, understanding, and awareness. This doesn't make suffering go away, but it makes it bearable. It gives us the strength to endure, knowing that we are not alone in our pain. In times of hardship, the Buddha didn't ask his followers to simply sit back and do nothing. Instead, he taught them to respond to life's challenges with wisdom and compassion. The Buddha's calm was not passive. It was an active, powerful presence. It was the kind of calm that allowed him to face the harshest realities of life without being moved by them. It was the calm of a person who had accepted the world as it is, with all its imperfections and suffering. Now, let's bring this back to our daily lives. How often do we get caught up in the chaos of life? We lose our tempers, we get frustrated, we feel helpless in the face of problems. But imagine if, in those moments, we could remain calm, like the Buddha facing the fire. Imagine if we could transform our reactions to challenges, not by ignoring them or avoiding them, but by seeing them for what they truly are, temporary, changeable, and not worth losing our peace over. The Buddha's path was one of continuous practice. He didn't attain his calm overnight, and neither will we. It takes time to develop the strength to stay calm in the face of life's difficulties. But with practice, it becomes easier. You don't need to wait for everything to be perfect before you begin. The practice itself is the key. Each moment you spend observing your thoughts, your emotions, and your reactions brings you closer to the peace that the Buddha knew. In a world filled with noise, stress, and conflict, the Buddha's calmness serves as a beacon, showing us that peace is not something we must search for externally. It is something we cultivate within ourselves. Just like fire can burn without consuming the ground beneath it, so too can we live in a world without being consumed by it. The flames of life may rise, but with mindfulness, awareness, and equanimity, we can remain untouched. The Buddha's life was a testament to the power of inner calm. He didn't change the world by fighting against it. He changed it by staying grounded in his truth, by staying calm in the face of chaos. And so, the challenge for us is not to avoid the flames, but to learn how to face them with the same unshakable mind that the Buddha cultivated. This is the path to peace, the path to freedom, and the path to a life lived with wisdom and clarity. Silence in the storm. Mastering inner stillness. Life is a storm. We cannot avoid it. It comes with all its intensity, its unpredictable nature, its loud moments, and its crushing blows. But within this storm, there is one thing that we can control: our reaction. You see, the storm does not always have to rage inside you. It is possible to stand in the middle of life's chaos and remain still, untouched, like the center of a tornado. The winds may howl around you, but in the eye of the storm, there is perfect peace. Imagine you're standing on a cliff, looking out over the vast ocean. Waves crash against the rocks, loud and forceful, splashing up water that falls back into the depths. Yet in that moment you are not moved. You do not panic with every wave. You do not tremble with fear as the ocean roars. Why? Because you have learned that just like the ocean, life's challenges will come and go. The waves, no matter how powerful, cannot control your peace unless you let them. This is where the practice of silence becomes powerful. The Buddha taught us that silence is not merely the absence of noise. It is the presence of peace. A still mind is one that does not react, but rather responds with awareness. When the world around you is filled with noise, with distractions, and with anger, silence becomes the sanctuary where you find refuge. You see, silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of your true self, the self that is not shaken by every change in the environment. Take a moment to think about your life. How often do you react immediately to what happens around you? Maybe someone says something unkind to you, and instantly anger rises. Or perhaps something doesn't go your way, and frustration surges through you. These emotions are like the waves, crashing violently, disturbing your peace. But if you learn to pause, to step back, and simply observe your emotions rather than act on them, you begin to shift from being controlled by them to controlling them. In Buddhism, this is known as mindfulness. It is the ability to stay present in the moment without being swept away by what is happening. When we practice mindfulness, we create space between ourselves and our reactions. This space allows us to respond with calmness, with understanding, rather than reacting out of impulse or fear. The Buddha himself often spoke of the importance of sitting in silence and observing the world without attachment. In silence, you can hear your own inner wisdom, the voice that is always calm, always steady. Imagine a pond on a windless day. The water is smooth like glass. You can see the reflection of a sky perfectly mirrored on its surface. But the moment a stone is thrown into the water, the calm is disturbed. The surface ripples, and the reflection distorts. This is how our minds often behave when we let the world around us control our emotions. A small problem, a harsh word, a difficult situation, and suddenly we are no longer at peace. Our minds become like the rippling water, unable to find clarity. But what if you could be like the water that does not ripple, even when the stone is thrown? What if, instead of reacting with anger or fear, you could remain still, like the deep water below the surface, unaffected by the events above? This is the power of silence. It is not about ignoring what is happening around you. It is about understanding that you do not need to be swept away by it. The calmness you seek is already inside of you, waiting to be noticed. When you face challenges, whether they're small inconveniences or massive struggles, try this. Take a deep breath and just observe your feelings. Notice where the tension is in your body, where the thoughts are running, and simply allow them to exist without judgment. Don't try to change anything right away. Just let it be. In that space of observation, you'll begin to see that you're not your thoughts, you're not your feelings. You are the one observing them. This realization creates a powerful shift. You're no longer controlled by your emotions. You are the master of your response. In moments of difficulty, the key is to stop and breathe. Breathing is the most immediate way to bring yourself back to the present moment. It is like a reset button for your mind. When we breathe, deeply, we signal to our bodies that we are safe, that we do not need to react immediately. In those moments, we can choose to remain calm, to let the storm rage outside of us, while we stay grounded in stillness. This doesn't mean that challenges won't affect you. It doesn't mean that you won't feel anger, fear, or sadness. It simply means that you do not have to let those emotions control your actions. You do not have to let them dictate your state of mind. When you practice silence, when you give yourself the space to respond rather than react, you begin to find peace within yourself, even when the world around you is in turmoil. And this, my friend, is the true strength of a calm mind. It is not the absence of problems, but the ability to face them with a clear, undisturbed mind. The more you practice this inner silence, the more you will begin to notice how powerful it becomes. You will start to feel less affected by the small things, less shaken by the ups and downs of life. You will become like the calm lake, reflecting the world around you without being disturbed by it. True peace is not something you find outside of yourself. It is not dependent on the circumstances of your life. It is something that comes from within. The next time life throws a stone into your pond, remember that you do not have to let it create ripples. Instead, let the stone fall into the stillness of your mind and watch as the surface returns to its calm state. When you practice silence, you will find that peace is always available to you, no matter what life brings. The power of detachment, letting go to hold on. In life, we often find ourselves holding on to things so tightly, as if our very survival depends on them. We clutch our possessions, our emotions, our relationships, and even our self-image with all our strength. We believe that if we let go of these things, we will lose ourselves, or worse, we will be left with nothing. But the truth is, the more tightly we hold on to these things, the more we suffer. The more we attach ourselves to fleeting moments, people, and material objects, the more we find ourselves trapped in a cycle of pain, fear, and disappointment. What would happen if we let go of our attachments? What would happen if we stopped clinging to the idea of how things should be and accepted them as they are? In Buddhism, this is called detachment, but it's not the same as indifference. Detachment isn't about turning away from life or avoiding emotions. It's about recognizing that our happiness doesn't depend on the things we hold so tightly. It's about realizing that we can find peace, not in the things we possess or the outcomes we crave, but in the space between them, in the freedom that comes from letting go. Letting go isn't easy. It requires us to confront our fears, the fear of losing control, the fear of uncertainty, the fear of being vulnerable. It's the fear that tells us, if you let go, you'll be left with nothing. But in reality, when we let go, we make space for something greater. We make space for true freedom, for inner peace, and for a deeper connection with ourselves and the world around us. Think about a time when you held on too tightly to something. Maybe it was a relationship that wasn't working or a job that drained you. The more you try to hold on, the more it hurt. You felt frustrated, anxious, and helpless, like you were stuck in a never-ending struggle. Now imagine if, instead of holding on, you had simply let go. What if you had accepted the situation for what it was, released your grip, and allowed life to flow as it should? The moment you let go is the moment you free yourself. In Buddhism, this idea of detachment is closely linked to the concept of impermanence. Everything in life is constantly changing. Our emotions, our relationships, our circumstances, they are all in a state of flux. Nothing lasts forever. And this is a beautiful thing because it means that no matter how bad a situation may seem, it will eventually change. The key is not to hold on to it, to fight against it, or to resist it. The key is to let it pass, like a wave rolling onto the shore, and then receding back into the ocean. When we understand impermanence, we stop clinging to the idea that things should remain the same. We stop trying to control the uncontrollable, and instead, We learn to flow with the current of life. This doesn't mean we become passive or indifferent to the challenges we face. It means we become resilient. We become adaptable. We become like water, flowing around obstacles rather than trying to break through them. Detachment also helps us release the burden of expectations. We often suffer because we expect things to unfold in a particular way. We expect our relationships to be perfect, our careers to be fulfilling, our health to remain stable. When life doesn't meet our expectations, we feel disappointed, frustrated, and angry. But when we let go of these expectations, we free ourselves from the need for things to be a certain way. We allow ourselves to experience life as it is, without judgment or resistance. Consider the example of a flower blooming. A flower doesn't cling to the idea of how it should bloom. It simply opens in its own time, without attachment to the outcome. It trusts the process, knowing that it will bloom in the perfect moment. This is how we should approach life, without attachment to how things should unfold, but with trust in the process, in the natural flow of life. Detachment also means letting go of the stories we tell ourselves. We often define ourselves by our past experiences, by the roles we play, and by the labels we put on ourselves. I am a failure. I am a success. I am a victim. I am a survivor. But these stories are not who we truly are. They're just narratives we have created to make sense of our experiences. When we detach from these stories, we free ourselves from the limitations they impose on us. We allow ourselves to become who we truly are, pure, limitless, and free. The Buddha taught that our suffering arises from our attachments, and that the path to liberation is through letting go. This doesn't mean that we stop caring about the things that matter to us. It means we stop letting them define us, control us, and dictate our happiness. We learn to love and care deeply, but without attachment. We experience life fully, but without clinging to it. We embrace change, but without fear. Letting go also means releasing the need for approval or validation from others. We often find ourselves attached to the opinions of others, constantly seeking their approval to feel good about ourselves. But when we detach from this need, we discover a deep sense of self-worth that comes from within. We no longer need to prove ourselves to anyone because we know who we are. We no longer need to seek outside validation because we are already enough. So, how do we begin to practice detachment in our own lives? The first step is awareness. We must become aware of our attachments, the things, the people, the emotions, and the beliefs that we are holding on to tightly. We must ask ourselves, what am I afraid to let go of? Why am I afraid? What is this attachment doing to me? Once we identify our attachments, we can begin to gently release them, one by one, without fear or resistance. The next step is to embrace impermanence. We must remind ourselves that everything in life is temporary. The good times, the bad times, the happy moments, the sad ones, they're all part of the ebb and flow of life. When we accept this truth, we stop clinging to the past and worrying about the future. We learn to live fully in the present moment, knowing that everything will change in its own time. Finally, we must cultivate trust. Trust that life knows what it's doing, even when we don't understand it. Trust that by letting go, we are not losing something, but gaining something far greater: freedom, peace, and the ability to live fully in the moment. Trust that by detaching, we are not turning away from life, but opening ourselves to it in a deeper, more meaningful way. In the end, the power of detachment lies not in renouncing life, but in embracing it without attachment. When we learn to let go, we become unshakable. We become like the calm center of a storm, untouched by the winds that swirl around us. We find peace, not by controlling life, but by letting life unfold as it will. And in that peace, we find true freedom. The middle way, balance amid despair. When you face a crisis, when life seems to be unraveling, it's easy to go to extremes. You might feel the urge to either cling tightly to the things that are slipping away or let them go entirely. There's a natural tendency to react in such extremes, thinking either that everything must be controlled or that you should abandon it all. But this way of thinking, this all-or-nothing mindset, only deepens the suffering. What Buddhism teaches us through the wisdom of the middle way is that true peace and calm come not from the extremes, but from the balance in between. The middle way is about finding that calm center where you can observe without getting swept away by your emotions. It's the path between the self-destructive extremes of indulgence and the self-denying extremes of asceticism. It teaches that the key to navigating life's challenges isn't through overexertion or pushing things aside, but through wise, moderate action. It's about walking the path where you neither cling nor push away, where you simply let things be, allowing them to unfold naturally. Think about a tightrope walker balancing high above the ground. If the walker leans too far to the left or right, they will fall. But if they stay centered, moving gently with the rope, they can cross safely. The same goes for life. When you're too attached to outcomes, when you're clinging to the idea of control, you lose your balance. And when you withdraw too much, when you abandon the world in search of solitude, you miss the opportunity to find peace within the chaos. The middle way asks you to balance between engagement and detachment, action and non-action, acceptance and change. This is particularly important when you find yourself in moments of despair. It's easy to feel as though the only way forward is to either give up completely or forcefully fix everything. But the middle way teaches us that the answer lies in a more measured approach. You don't have to fix everything at once. You don't have to make everything perfect. You can simply begin, step by step, without rushing, without pushing too hard. You don't need to control everything. Instead, you learn to respond wisely in each moment, based on what the situation calls for. When life brings you suffering, the impulse is often to escape. You might want to distract yourself, numb the pain, or look for something, anything, to make the discomfort go away. But this avoidance only perpetuates the cycle. The Buddhist teaching is clear. You must face your suffering. But you don't need to face it alone, nor do you need to face it with force. Through the middle way, you learn to engage with your pain, to understand it, to let it be without letting it overwhelm you. Imagine for a moment a river. The water is flowing with a steady, constant current. It doesn't rush, nor does it hold back. It moves with the natural rhythm of the earth. If you were to stand in the river, you wouldn't fight against it, and you wouldn't let the current sweep you away. Instead, you would stand firm, letting the water flow around you, calmly adjusting your stance as it changes. Life, too, moves with the rhythm. When we try to control it too much, we fight against it, and we lose our balance. But when we let it flow naturally, we find ourselves moving with it in a steady and peaceful way. This balance is not always easy to find. It takes practice. In our everyday lives, we encounter countless situations that pull us toward extremes. It might be the pressure of work, the demands of family, the anxiety of expectations. It's so easy to either give in completely or to shut everything out. But in those moments, it's helpful to remember the middle way. Instead of giving up or pushing too hard, you can ask yourself, what is the right amount of effort here? What is the most balanced, peaceful response I can offer to this situation? What action would allow me to move forward without losing my peace? Buddhism doesn't teach us to avoid suffering. Instead, it teaches us how to face it in a way that doesn't lead to more suffering. The middle way is about accepting that life is not perfect, that suffering is a part of the human experience. But it also teaches us that we don't need to create more suffering by overreacting, by getting caught in anger or fear. We don't need to escape it, either by withdrawing into numbness or distraction. We simply need to face it, to be present with it, without losing ourselves in it. This is a subtle but profound shift in perspective. Instead of seeing life's challenges as something to either control or escape, you begin to see them as something to engage with in a balanced way. It's about developing the wisdom to know when to act and when to let go. It's about knowing when to push forward with courage and when to rest in stillness. And it's about understanding that both effort and surrender are part of the same path. As you continue to practice this balanced approach, you'll begin to notice that you're less reactive. You'll find yourself responding to difficulties with greater calm, understanding that nothing lasts forever. The storm will pass, and the sun will shine again. By embracing the middle way, you start to experience life not as a series of extremes, but as a steady unfolding, a process of growth, of learning, and of finding peace in the midst of everything. The key is patience. It takes time to cultivate the kind of balance that the middle way teaches. You won't always get it right. There will be moments when you overreact, when you find yourself clinging too tightly to something or pulling away too soon. But that's okay. The middle way isn't about perfection. It's about practice. It's about doing the best you can each moment to find balance, to find peace. With time and practice, you'll get better at it. And when you face the next challenge, you'll know how to meet it with calm, with clarity, and with wisdom. Ultimately, the middle way is about freedom. Freedom from the extremes of attachment and aversion. Freedom from the pull of control and the fear of letting go. It's the freedom to simply be, to exist in the world as it is, without needing it to be different. It's about being in tune with the natural flow of life and trusting that when you act with wisdom, peace will naturally follow. Breathing in fire, using mindfulness to reclaim peace. In the midst of life's storms, we often forget one simple truth. The power to find peace is always within us. It's easy to get caught up in the chaos, to feel overwhelmed by the demands of the world. But what if, instead of letting the outside world dictate how we feel, we could simply pause, take a breath, and remember who we truly are? The key to mastering peace, especially in the most intense situations, lies in mindfulness. But let's break this down a little. What does it mean to be mindful, really? It's not just about sitting in a quiet room, closing your eyes and meditating. It's about being fully aware of the present moment, no matter where you are or what's happening around you. Think about it. When a storm rages outside, the natural response is to take shelter. But what about the storms inside? Those moments of anger, frustration, or fear? How do you take shelter from those? The answer is mindfulness. By bringing your attention to the present moment, you stop the storm in your mind from growing any bigger. You become aware of the thoughts and feelings that are causing the turmoil. And then, with mindfulness, you can choose how to respond. Let's consider an example. Imagine you're in a conversation, and suddenly, someone says something that triggers anger in you. The impulse to react is almost automatic. You feel your heart rate increase, your body tensing, and your thoughts rushing to defend yourself. But in that exact moment, you have a choice. You can either let the anger consume you, or you can pause, breathe, and center yourself in the present moment. This isn't about suppressing your feelings. It's about noticing them, observing them, and choosing not to be controlled by them. You can feel the anger rise, but you don't have to let it dictate your actions. You take a deep breath, and in that breath, you ground yourself in the now. You feel the air entering your lungs, the sensation of the coolness on your skin, the movement of your chest. The storm of emotions begins to calm, and with it, the clarity of mind returns. In this moment, you have reclaimed your peace. You haven't changed the situation, but you've changed how you relate to it. This is the power of mindfulness. Now, mindfulness isn't always easy. In fact, in the midst of a difficult situation, it's one of the hardest things to do. But it's also one of the most powerful. When you practice mindfulness, you start to notice how often you react impulsively to situations. You'll realize how much energy you waste on emotions that don't serve you, like anger, resentment, or fear. And you'll begin to see how much of your peace is lost because you let these emotions control you. But here's the beautiful part. Every time you practice mindfulness, you're strengthening your ability to stay calm in the storm. It's like building a muscle. The more you practice, the easier it becomes. The next time something triggers you, you'll feel the pull to react, but instead, you'll take that breath. You'll pause. And in that pause, you'll find your center again. In Buddhism, this idea is often referred to as right mindfulness. It's not just about being aware of your thoughts, but about being aware in a way that brings clarity and calm. You don't have to run from your emotions. You don't have to pretend they don't exist. But by practicing mindfulness, you can prevent your emotions from taking over. You can face them with wisdom, and in doing so, transform them. The act of mindfulness helps us realize something profound. We don't have to be victims of our circumstances. We don't have to be slaves to our emotions. Through mindfulness, we have the power to choose how we respond. It's not about controlling the world around us. It's about controlling how we experience the world. And this is where true freedom lies. Breathing in fire is a powerful metaphor. When you breathe in fire, it doesn't mean you're unaffected by the heat. It means you've learned how to endure the heat without being burned by it. You've learned how to stay calm, even in the fiercest flames. Every time you practice mindfulness, you breathe in the fire and emerge untouched, stronger, and wiser. This doesn't mean you'll never experience difficult emotions again. It doesn't mean that life will suddenly become easy. But it does mean that you'll have the tools to face whatever comes your way with greater ease and grace. You'll learn to stay grounded even when the winds of life are strong. So, when the next storm comes, whether it's a personal crisis, a difficult conversation, or a moment of stress, remember the power of mindfulness. Take a deep breath. Pause. Let the storm rage, but don't let it pull you under. With mindfulness, you can find peace in the midst of chaos. You can breathe in the fire and stay unshaken. As you continue on your journey, remember that mindfulness is always available to you. It's not something that happens in isolated moments of meditation. It's a tool you can use at any time, in any place. Whether you're at work, at home, or out in the world, mindfulness is a practice you can return to again and again. And with each practice, you'll find yourself becoming more resilient, more calm, and more at peace with whatever life brings. The storms may continue to come, but with mindfulness, you'll stand firm, like a mountain, unaffected by the winds. The calm is always within you. All you have to do is remember to breathe. Compassion in crisis, the unexpected strength. In life, there will be moments that shake you to your very core. It's inevitable. You'll face challenges that seem too big to overcome, situations that make you wonder how you'll survive. But the truth is, when we're at our lowest, there's something that can pull us back up, something both powerful and gentle, something we often overlook in our times of crisis. That something is compassion. Compassion is often misunderstood. Many people think of it as just a feeling of pity or sympathy. But true compassion is much deeper. It's not about feeling sorry for someone else or offering empty words of comfort. It's about seeing the suffering around you, understanding it, and wanting to do something to alleviate it, even if it's just offering your presence, your support, or your understanding. In the midst of a crisis, compassion becomes a tool, one that not only helps others but also heals you. Think for a moment about the times when you were struggling. It might have been an illness, a personal loss, or a setback in your life. In those moments, did you notice how people's kindness had a way of softening the blow? Even if their words didn't take away the pain, the simple act of showing care, of holding space for your emotions, made a difference. That's compassion in action. It doesn't fix the situation, but it brings peace, like a gentle hand on your shoulder, telling you that you're not alone. Now, let's take this a step further. What if you could extend that same compassion to yourself in the hardest moments of your life? Too often, we are our own worst critics. When things go wrong, when we make mistakes, we beat ourselves up, thinking we don't deserve kindness or understanding. But in Buddhism, compassion isn't just for others. It's a gift we give ourselves. It's the practice of embracing your own humanity, accepting your imperfections, and allowing yourself the grace to heal. There's a powerful teaching in Buddhism that says, "May I be free from suffering. May I be happy. May I be at peace." This is a mantra of compassion, and it's one you can use to center yourself in any crisis. The first part of this mantra, "May I be free from suffering," reminds us that it's okay to acknowledge our pain. We don't have to hide it or pretend it's not there. In fact, the more we deny our suffering, the harder it becomes to move through it. "May I be happy" is not about seeking joy in the absence of pain, but about cultivating a deep sense of inner peace, no matter what's happening around us. Even when things are falling apart, there's always a way to find peace within. It's about shifting your focus from what's wrong to what's right. What do you have that brings you comfort, however small it may seem? A memory, a person, a practice, a belief. These things can anchor you when everything else feels uncertain. "May I be at peace" is the final reminder that true calm comes from within. It's not something that happens when your circumstances improve. It's something you choose to cultivate, regardless of your circumstances. This peace doesn't come from controlling the world around you, but from learning to accept and live with it as it is. Now, let's return to the crisis. Imagine you're in the middle of a situation where everything feels overwhelming, perhaps with a personal problem, an external challenge, or an emotional storm. In that moment, how do you find peace? The answer lies in compassion. When everything is falling apart, compassion can be your anchor, the one thing that keeps you grounded. But compassion isn't just about how we treat others. It's about how we treat ourselves. Think of how you would treat a friend who's in crisis. You wouldn't criticize them for being weak, for feeling afraid, or for making mistakes. You would offer them understanding, patience, and love. So why not offer yourself the same compassion? Why not recognize that you, too, deserve kindness and care in your darkest hours? One of the key teachings of Buddhism is the idea of interconnection. We are not isolated beings. We are all part of a larger web of life. When you show compassion to others, you also show compassion to yourself. The act of caring for someone else's pain opens up your heart and helps you connect with your own suffering in a meaningful way. This connection is what allows healing to take place. Think about the people in your life who've shown you compassion. How did it make you feel? Maybe it helped you see things differently, or perhaps it gave you the courage to keep going. Now, imagine being that person for someone else. The simple act of showing compassion, of extending a hand in their time of need, can have a profound effect on both of you. You'll both feel a sense of connection, of shared humanity, and that connection is a source of strength in itself. There's also a deep wisdom in understanding that suffering is a part of life. In Buddhist philosophy, this is known as the truth of suffering or dukkha. We all face challenges, pain, and loss. But what we choose to do with that suffering is what defines us. Do we let it consume us? Or do we use it as an opportunity to practice compassion, both for ourselves and others? When you're in crisis, it can be easy to forget that suffering is temporary. It might feel all-consuming in the moment, but nothing lasts forever. This is where compassion can offer you a different perspective. Instead of focusing on the pain, try shifting your attention to the love, the care, and the compassion that still exists around you. It's always there, even in the hardest of times. Finally, compassion is not just about emotional support. It's also about action. Sometimes, when we're in crisis, we don't need words. We need people who are willing to stand beside us and help us carry the load. The simplest gesture, a hug, a kind word, a helping hand, can be enough to change everything. In Buddhism, this is often referred to as right action, doing the things that bring peace, not just to yourself, but to the world around you. So, in times of crisis, remember this. You have the power to transform your suffering into something beautiful through compassion. Not just for others, but for yourself as well. It might not change your circumstances overnight, but it will change how you respond to them. And that shift of choosing compassion over and over again will give you a strength you never knew you had. The wheel keeps turning, embracing impermanence. Imagine that you are standing at the edge of a river, watching the water flow by. The current is strong, and it moves swiftly, never stopping. Every second, a new ripple is created, and the water that passed you just moments ago is already gone, replaced by what is now flowing in front of you. Nothing remains the same. The river never stays still. It is always changing, always moving. Just like the river, life is constantly flowing, and everything we know will change. The Buddha taught us that impermanence is one of the fundamental truths of existence. In the Buddhist tradition, this concept is called anicca, which means the impermanence of all things. It's a truth we often resist because, as humans, we crave stability and certainty. We want things to stay the same. We want to hold on to moments, people, and emotions that make us feel safe. But the truth is, nothing lasts forever. Everything, whether it's a joyous moment or a painful one, is in constant flux. Now, think about the things in your life that you hold on to. Perhaps it's a job, a relationship, or even a particular idea of yourself. You may fear losing them, and that fear can sometimes control your actions. You may find yourself clinging to these things, believing that without them, you won't be whole or happy. But the more tightly we hold on, the more suffering we experience when things inevitably change. The Buddha's wisdom teaches us that understanding impermanence is the key to letting go of that attachment. By recognizing that everything is in a constant state of change, we can shift our perspective. Instead of feeling despair when something is lost, we can begin to see it as part of the natural rhythm of life. Just as a wave rises and falls, so too do our experiences. They come and go, and we can either fight the current or we can learn to flow with it. Take a moment to think about your own life. Is there something you're holding on to too tightly? Is there a fear of loss that controls your choices or actions? Maybe it's the fear of losing a loved one, a job, or even your own youth. These fears are natural, but they also trap us. The more we resist change, the more we allow it to create suffering in our lives. But when we embrace impermanence, we begin to live more freely. We understand that every moment is precious because it is fleeting. This understanding allows us to appreciate the present more deeply. Imagine a tree shedding its leaves in autumn. It doesn't cling to them, nor does it fear the coming of winter. It simply lets go, trusting that new growth will come in the spring. It is through change that the tree thrives. In the same way, we must learn to let go of the past, of what we think we should have, and trust that what is coming is exactly what we need. This idea of impermanence can be especially difficult when we face loss. Losing a loved one, facing the end of a relationship, or even losing a part of our own health can feel unbearable. We naturally want to hold on to what we know, but in holding on, we can miss the deeper lesson that life is giving us. When something or someone leaves our life, it creates space for new growth and new experiences. The Buddha teaches us that life is not about avoiding loss, but about accepting it as part of the cycle of existence. By accepting the impermanence of all things, we learn to live with a lighter heart. When you accept impermanence, you also learn to live without clinging to outcomes. So much of our stress comes from wanting things to go exactly the way we imagine them. We set expectations, and when reality doesn't align with them, we feel disappointment, frustration, or anger. But when we let go of rigid expectations, we allow life to unfold as it will. We stop fighting against the current and start flowing with it. In this way, the fear of impermanence slowly dissolves, and we become more open to the beauty of change. Another way to think about impermanence is to reflect on your own life. Remember when you were younger and how much you changed over the years. Your body, your thoughts, your interests, they've all shifted, and yet you are still you. The essence of who you are remains, even as everything else changes. This realization can bring great peace. You don't need to be afraid of change because, in truth, it's a part of you. Buddhism teaches that suffering arises when we try to hold on to things that are meant to pass. The more we fight against impermanence, the more we create our own suffering. However, when we understand the natural flow of life, we can move through change with a sense of calm and acceptance. This acceptance doesn't mean we don't grieve loss or face challenges. It means we accept that life is always shifting and that each moment, no matter how difficult, will pass. Look at your current life situation. What has changed recently? Perhaps you've experienced a setback or faced an unexpected challenge. Instead of resisting it, ask yourself, how can I grow from this? What is life trying to teach me through this change? The beauty of impermanence is that it offers us opportunities for growth, learning, and transformation, even in the hardest of times. We may feel that we're losing something important, but in truth, we are always gaining something new. The world is constantly shifting, and so are we. Each moment of change offers us a chance to step into a new version of ourselves, one who is more adaptable, more compassionate, and more aware. The Buddhists call this the practice of non-attachment. It's not about giving up what we love, but about learning not to hold on to it too tightly. When we stop clinging, we open ourselves up to new experiences and new possibilities. There's a beauty in seeing that everything is in motion. Every problem we face, every moment of pain, every joy, everything is moving, shifting, changing. And just like the river that carries us, we must flow with it. We cannot stop the current, but we can learn to navigate it with wisdom and grace. By embracing impermanence, we free ourselves from the fear of loss and open ourselves to the wonder of life's unfolding journey. Now, when you face a difficult moment, remember that it too will pass. When you experience loss, understand that this is simply a part of the natural cycle of life. You're not meant to hold on to everything forever. Let go and trust that new things will come just as the seasons change. By embracing impermanence, we embrace the flow of life itself. And in that flow, we find peace. A mind like water, training for the next collapse. Imagine standing on a still lake. The water is so calm, so clear, that it reflects the sky like a mirror. You can see the birds flying above, the trees swaying in the distance, and the sun setting on the horizon. But then, out of nowhere, a stone is thrown into the water. Ripples begin to form, slowly at first, but soon they spread, disturbing the perfect reflection of the world around you. The surface becomes chaotic. The water can no longer show the clear image it once did. It's in moments like these that life becomes a test of how we handle the storms, the disruptions, the forces we cannot control. What happens when you're faced with your own storm? When life throws its stones, its problems, stress, and heartbreaks, do you react like that still lake, disturbed by every ripple? Or do you become like the water in the lake itself? The water that, despite being disturbed, always returns to its calm state, always finds its balance again. In the teachings of Zen, we are taught to cultivate a mind like water, not in the sense that we become passive or emotionless, but in the sense that we learn to be unaffected by the disturbances around us. Water, as fluid and adaptable as it is, doesn't resist the stone that is thrown into it. It doesn't fight the ripples. Instead, it absorbs them, flows with them, and ultimately returns to its natural state of calm. This is how we are asked to approach life's inevitable storms. Rather than resisting the challenges, rather than fighting the waves of stress, we learn to let them pass through us. We do not hold onto the ripples. They are temporary, and soon they will fade. Just as water finds its stillness again after a stone is thrown, so too can our minds find peace, no matter the chaos surrounding us. The path to achieving this doesn't happen overnight. It takes practice, dedication, and a deep understanding that peace isn't something we need to chase, but something that's always within us, waiting to be rediscovered. When we train ourselves to respond to life with mindfulness, we begin to realize that we have the power to control how we react. Life may throw its stones, but we can choose how we respond to them. We can choose to react with anger, fear, or frustration, or we can choose to let go of those emotions, allowing them to pass by like ripples in the water. It's not about ignoring the challenges or pretending that they don't affect us. It's about recognizing them for what they are, temporary disturbances in the surface of our minds. They're like clouds passing through the sky, blocking the sun for a while, but eventually moving on. And just as the sun is always there behind the clouds, so too is our inner peace always there behind the noise and chaos. This practice takes time. At first, you may find yourself reacting to every small disturbance. Someone says something that bothers you, and immediately you feel your emotions rise. A difficult situation at work throws you off balance, and you find yourself overwhelmed. But with each experience, you train your mind to respond more calmly. You practice letting go, not holding onto the ripples of anger, frustration, or fear. Over time, the space between the disturbance and your reaction grows. You'll start to realize that you don't have to be swept away by every storm. Instead, you can remain steady and centered. One of the most profound lessons in Zen is the understanding that we are not the disturbances that occur in our lives. We are not the storms, nor the ripples in the water. We are the water itself, the space in which the storms come and go. By seeing ourselves as this unchanging, calm presence, we begin to free ourselves from the grip of emotions that usually cloud our minds. We become like the water that remains undisturbed, no matter what is happening on the surface. This is the power of mindfulness. By practicing mindfulness, we learn to observe our thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them. We see them arise, but we don't have to hold on to them. We recognize that emotions are like passing clouds, sometimes dark and stormy, but always temporary. In this way, we can train ourselves to respond with greater calm, patience, and clarity. But how do we begin this practice? The first step is awareness. You must first become aware of when the ripples begin in your mind. It could be a feeling of anxiety rising, a wave of anger crashing in, or a moment of frustration. Rather than reacting immediately, take a step back. Observe the emotion as it arises. Don't judge it. Don't try to push it away. Simply acknowledge it. This is anger. This is frustration. This is fear. By naming the emotion, you begin to separate yourself from it. You are no longer the emotion. You are the observer of it. Once you have acknowledged the emotion, take a deep breath. Focus on your breath, the rise and fall of your chest. As you do, you create a moment of space between the emotion and your reaction. This moment is where the magic happens. In this space, you can choose your response. Instead of reacting impulsively, you can decide to let the emotion pass through you, like the ripples on the surface of the water. You can choose to remain calm, centered, and unshaken. The more you practice this, the easier it becomes. Over time, you'll find that you don't need to react so strongly to every disturbance. You begin to see that the ripples don't need to control you. You are the water, and you have the power to return to your stillness, no matter what is happening around you. Zen teaches us that the key to inner peace is not about avoiding life's difficulties, but about embracing them with a calm mind. It's about learning to respond to challenges with wisdom, rather than reacting with fear or frustration. When we train ourselves to have a mind like water, we become less affected by the storms that come our way. Instead of being swept away by every wave, we remain grounded and centered, always returning to our natural state of calm. This practice isn't just for the big moments in life. It's for the small moments too, the daily challenges, the little frustrations, the everyday disturbances. Every time you practice mindfulness, you're training your mind to become more like water, flexible, calm, and unshakable. And as you continue this practice, you will find that your life becomes more peaceful, more centered, and more grounded. Life's storms may still come, but you will always return to your calm. You will always be the water, no matter what ripples appear on the surface. Becoming the mountain, final wisdom for unshakable calm. As we stand at the end of this journey, I invite you to pause, take a deep breath, and reflect on what we've learned together. Imagine now that you are the mountain, strong, unmoving, majestic. No matter how fierce the winds blow or how heavy the rain falls, the mountain stands tall, rooted, and unwavering. This is the essence of the calm we seek. It is not an illusion of peace, but a true, deep-rooted stillness that we can cultivate within ourselves. For most of us, life is like a river that rushes, always moving, never stopping. But imagine if you could stand at the riverbank, untouched by its current. The river might carry away leaves, branches, and debris, but you, the observer, are unmoved. You're still. This is the ultimate goal, the state of inner peace. To face the storms of life without being swept away by them. To stand firm in the face of adversity. You see, life doesn't promise that there won't be struggles. In fact, it's quite the opposite. We will face loss, disappointment, anger, and frustration. The key is not to avoid these experiences, but to respond to them in a way that doesn't disturb our inner peace. Buddhism teaches us to see these challenges not as obstacles, but as opportunities for growth. Each moment of discomfort, every painful emotion, is a chance to practice stillness. When the storms of life come, we are often tempted to react quickly, perhaps with anger, fear, or frustration. But reaction only pulls us further from peace. It creates more suffering, more confusion. What we need to do instead is to pause. Take a step back. Breathe deeply. In that moment, we connect with something greater than our immediate feelings. We remind ourselves that everything, like the storm, is temporary. And just as the storm will pass, so too will our emotions. Buddhism offers us a simple yet profound solution: mindfulness. Mindfulness is not just about being aware of the present moment, but about observing it without judgment. It's about acknowledging what is happening without allowing it to control us. In the midst of chaos, we can learn to observe, to breathe, and to simply be. When we master mindfulness, we stop being victims of our circumstances, and instead, we become the observers, the ones who are in control. But mindfulness alone is not enough. It is important to remember the deeper teachings of Buddhism, the truth of impermanence. Nothing in this life is permanent. Every joy, every pain, every moment of happiness and sorrow is fleeting. When we truly understand this, we stop clinging to things that no longer serve us. We stop fearing loss, because we know it is a natural part of the cycle of life. This awareness gives us freedom. It allows us to live fully, without attachment, without fear of what is to come. Now, let's talk about compassion. It might seem strange to bring this up in a discussion about staying calm, but it is deeply connected. When we develop compassion, not only for others but for ourselves, we begin to soften the sharp edges of our own reactions. Compassion is like a balm for the heart. It reminds us that everyone, including ourselves, is doing the best they can with what they have. So, instead of being harsh or critical of ourselves when we slip up, we offer ourselves the same kindness we would offer a friend. This self-compassion helps us remain calm, even in our most difficult moments. Another important principle we must embrace is letting go. We are often tied to the past, regrets, old wounds, missed opportunities. These things hold us back, weighing us down. But when we let go of the past, we free ourselves to live in the present. We stop carrying unnecessary burdens. We stop letting old wounds control our actions. Instead of dragging the past into every new moment, we allow ourselves to be light, to be free, to move forward with an open heart and mind. This process of letting go is not easy. It requires practice. It's a journey of transformation, one that doesn't happen overnight. But just like a mountain that is shaped over time by wind and rain, we too are shaped by our experiences. Each time we choose peace over reaction, we become stronger. Each time we release a negative thought or emotion, we carve a new path toward calm. So what does it mean to truly become the mountain? It means that no matter what happens, whether it's a storm or a moment of peace, we remain steadfast. We are rooted in our beliefs. We trust that, like the mountain, we are resilient. The storms may change us, but they do not break us. The winds may try to shake us, but they cannot move us from our foundation. As we close this final chapter of our journey together, remember that you have the power to remain unshaken. The Buddha taught us that calm is not something we find outside ourselves, but something that we must cultivate within. It is like a well that never runs dry, as long as we continue to tend to it. When you encounter the storms of life, remember that you are the mountain. Be still, and know that peace, true peace, lies within you. There are many paths to inner peace, but the path we've explored today, the path of Buddhism, is one that shows us the power of mindfulness, impermanence, compassion, and letting go. It is a path that, when followed, will help you navigate life's challenges with grace and calm. Thank you for being a part of this journey. If you have found value in these teachings, please consider liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing to Wisdom Writings. We are grateful for your presence and look forward to sharing more wisdom with you in the future. And finally, remember, stay calm, stay grounded, and above all, be the mountain in your own life.